The phone rang at 6:47 p.m. I was standing in the kitchen stirring a pan of pasta sauce when I noticed her name glowing on the screen. "Hey, babe," Lisa said when I answered, her voice sounding worn out and slightly rushed. "I'm really sorry, but Richard needs me to stay late again. We've got a huge client presentation tomorrow morning. I'll probably be stuck here until around 10 tonight." "Richard?" I repeated, referring to her boss, the senior partner at the law firm where she worked. "Again?" I asked, carefully keeping my tone calm and even. "That's the third time this week." I know," she replied quickly. "I promise I'll make it up to you this weekend, okay? Dinner, movie, whatever you want." I slowly glanced across the living room while she was talking. Sitting on my couch, holding a glass of wine that I had poured for her a few minutes earlier, was a woman with swollen red eyes and a folder packed with photographs resting in her lap. Her name was Catherine Hartwell, Richard's wife. She had knocked on my door about 20 minutes earlier, carrying evidence that had made the blood drain from my face the moment I saw it. And now my wife was on the phone repeating the exact same lie that Richard had been telling Catherine for months. "Okay," I said quietly into the phone. "Be safe. Love you." "Love you too," Lisa replied softly. The call ended. I lowered the phone onto the kitchen counter and walked back toward the living room, my footsteps feeling strangely heavy. Catherine lifted her head as I entered the room. Her mascara had run down her cheeks, leaving dark streaks under her eyes. "She said she's working late?" Catherine asked, her voice sounding hollow and tired. I nodded slowly. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, the kind that comes from someone who has cried so much they've run out of tears. She reached into the folder again and pulled out another photograph. The timestamp read 6:34 p.m. tonight. In the picture, my wife Lisa and Richard were climbing into his car inside the underground parking garage of a hotel downtown. Not the office, a hotel. "They're not working late," Catherine whispered quietly. "They never were." If you want to know what happened when I showed up at that hotel with Richard's wife, hit subscribe, because what we found in room 412 didn't just end a marriage, it ended two. My name is Daniel Cooper. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. For the past 6 years, I've been married to Lisa Cooper, whose maiden name was Lisa Chen. She works as a corporate attorney at Hartwell & Associates, one of the most respected law firms in the city. She's the kind of woman people notice the second she walks into a room. Smart, confident, beautiful, driven in a way that makes other people step aside. I'm a high school history teacher. I coach junior varsity basketball after school. I earn about $52,000 a year and spend most of my summers sitting on the back porch with a stack of books. We were never the kind of couple that people described as glamorous or powerful. We weren't destined for magazine covers or charity galas with photographers flashing cameras. But I believed we were stable. I believed we were the kind of couple that quietly built a good life together. I believed we were happy. I was wrong. Everything really started about 4 months ago. The phrase, "I'm working late again," slowly became the sentence Lisa used more than any other. At first, it happened once a week. Then it turned into twice. Before long, it was 3 or 4 nights every week. "Big case," she would explain. "Richard needs everyone focused." Richard Hartwell was 52 years old, the senior partner at the firm, and the man whose name was literally printed across the building's front entrance. Lisa mentioned him constantly. "Richard said this. Richard thinks that. Richard wants me to take the lead on this deal." At first, I convinced myself that it made sense. She was ambitious and career-focused. Of course, she'd talk about her boss. But the late nights kept increasing, and the distance between us slowly widened without either of us acknowledging it. She stopped asking how my day had gone. She stopped laughing at my terrible jokes. She stopped reaching for my hand when we sat together watching TV. Eventually, our bedroom turned into a quiet space where two people who once loved each other simply slept on opposite sides of the mattress. Some nights, I'd wake up around 2 in the morning and realize her side of the bed was empty. I'd walk out to the living room and see her sitting on the couch with the glow of her phone lighting up her face in the darkness. Her fingers would be moving quickly across the screen. "Work email," she'd say whenever I asked, but every time she would quickly close the phone before I could see what was actually on it. Red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 came with the wardrobe changes. Lisa had always dressed professionally, tailored suits, neat blouses, practical heels that fit the environment of a law office. But suddenly, the outfits started changing. The suits became tighter, the heels became higher, the perfume became stronger. New client, she explained once, need to look sharp. She also began going to the gym every morning at 5 a.m. She talked constantly about starting a wellness journey. Within 2 months, she had lost 15 pounds. I told myself I was just being paranoid. I told myself I should be proud of her for taking care of herself. But every time she left the house looking like that, something deep in my stomach twisted uncomfortably. Red flag number 3 was the phone. It used to sit on the kitchen counter, face up and unlocked like any normal phone in a marriage. But suddenly, it was always face down, always in her purse, always protected with a password I didn't know. One night, it buzzed while she was taking a shower. I glanced at the screen without thinking. The message preview read, "Richard, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear the blue dress." My stomach dropped instantly. I stared at the message until the screen faded back to black. When Lisa walked out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her body, I asked casually, "Why is Richard texting you about what dress to wear?" She didn't even hesitate. "Oh," she said easily, "he wants me to wear blue tomorrow because it's a client meeting and their company colors are blue." Smooth, quick, almost like she had already rehearsed that answer before I asked the question. I nodded, forced a smile, and swallowed the wave of nausea climbing into my throat. That was the moment I started paying closer attention. I'm not a detective. I'm a high school teacher who spends his days grading essays and arguing with teenagers about the causes of World War I. But I'm not naive either. I began noticing patterns. Every late night happened on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Every supposed client dinner was at the exact same restaurant downtown, the Capitol Grill. Every sudden work emergency appeared right after I mentioned some kind of weekend plan. Eventually, I logged into our cell phone account and checked the call records. Hundreds of text messages had been exchanged with one number, Richard's number. There were calls lasting 30 or 40 minutes late at night, and sometimes early in the morning. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen for a long time. Something inside me went completely cold. Not rage, not heartbreak, just clarity. But I still didn't confront her, not yet. I needed to be certain, and a small, foolish part of me still hoped that I was wrong. So I did what desperate men sometimes do. I followed her. It was a Thursday evening. She told me she had to work late again. I told her I had a faculty meeting after school. I didn't. I left the school building around 4 p.m., drove downtown, and parked across the street from her office building. At 6:15, she walked out the front door, but instead of heading toward her car, she turned and walked 2 blocks down the street toward the Capitol Grill. And she wasn't alone. Richard Hartwell walked beside her. Tall, silver hair, wearing an expensive tailored suit. His hand rested casually on the small of her back as they walked through the restaurant entrance together. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel while the door closed behind them. They stayed inside for 2 hours. When they finally came out, they were laughing together. Lisa lightly touched his arm. Richard leaned close to whisper something that made her smile. Then they walked to the nearby parking garage. They climbed into his car, a black Mercedes S-Class, and they drove away. I followed them, not too closely, just far enough to stay unnoticed. They didn't return to the office. They drove straight to the Ritz-Carlton. I watched them pull into the valet entrance. I watched them step out of the car. I watched Richard's hand slide again to the small of her back while the doorman held the door open for them. I sat in my car in the parking lot across the street with the engine turned off and my hands shaking. Part of me wanted to rush inside immediately. I imagined dragging them out of the lobby and exposing them in front of everyone. But that isn't who I am. I'm the kind of man who plans.
the kind who waits until he understands exactly what he's doing before acting. So instead of confronting them, I took photographs, clear photos with timestamps showing everything. Then I drove home. Later that night, Lisa returned around 10:30. "Sorry I'm so late," she said as she kicked off her heels by the door. "Richard is such a perfectionist. We went over that presentation like 5 times." She leaned down and kissed my cheek. The perfume she wore smelled stronger than usual. Different. "How was your faculty meeting?" she asked. "Fine," I said calmly. "Boring." She smiled tiredly. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to shower and go straight to bed." I watched her walk down the hallway and realized something in that moment. She wasn't even trying very hard to hide it anymore. She believed I was too oblivious to notice, or maybe too weak to do anything about it. She was wrong on both counts. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling while listening to her breathing beside me in the darkness. And sometime around 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her alone. I was going to find Richard's wife. Tracking down Catherine Hartwell wasn't difficult. LinkedIn, Facebook, a little time on Google. She was a pediatric nurse, 48 years old, with 2 kids currently attending college. Her social media pages were filled with cheerful family photos, beach vacations, holiday dinners, smiling pictures with Richard that made their life look perfect. I wondered if she already knew. I wondered if she suspected. I wondered if she was sitting at home alone while her husband was spending nights in hotel rooms with my wife. Eventually, I sent her a message. "Mrs. Hartwell, my name is Daniel Cooper. I'm married to Lisa Cooper, who works at your husband's firm. I believe we should talk. It's important." Then I waited. 3 hours later, she replied, "I know who you are, and I think you're right. Can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop in South End, neutral territory. Catherine walked in looking exactly like she did in her photos. Blonde hair, well-dressed, composed on the outside, but with something broken behind her eyes. We sat down in a quiet corner booth. She ordered tea. I ordered coffee, but never actually drank it. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly.
Suspected for about 4 months, I answered. Known for about 2 weeks. She nodded slowly. "I've suspected for 6 months," she said, "but I didn't have proof. Just a feeling." "What kind of feeling?" I asked. "The kind where your husband stops touching you, stops looking at you, stops being present even when he's sitting right next to you." I knew that feeling all too well. "I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago," she continued quietly. She pulled a thick folder out of her bag and placed it on the table between us. "I got the report yesterday." My hands were trembling as I opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of Lisa and Richard leaving the office together, climbing into his car, walking into hotels across the city, the Ritz, the Dunhill, the Ivy. Different hotels, same pattern. The timestamps stretched back 4 months. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. "There's more," Catherine said softly. She flipped to the final page. It was a bank statement from Richard's personal account. There were charges from jewelry stores, lingerie boutiques, expensive restaurants I had never heard of. Thousands of dollars spent on someone who wasn't his wife. "He's been using our savings," Catherine whispered, "to buy her gifts." I looked up at her and saw tears gathering again in her eyes. In that moment, I realized something. We were both victims of the same betrayal. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Catherine wiped her face and took a slow breath. "I want to confront them together." "Together?" I repeated. "They think we're stupid," she said firmly. "They think we'll sit quietly at home while they sneak around playing house." She looked directly at me. "I want them to see us standing together. I want them to know we know everything." I thought about it for a long moment.
The teacher inside me wanted to handle things calmly, file for divorce quietly, move on like an adult. But the husband inside me wanted justice. "Okay," I finally said. "Let's do it." So we started planning. Catherine's investigator had already been tracking their movements. He knew their routine almost perfectly. Tuesday and Thursday nights. Always a hotel, always the same pattern. This Thursday, we'd be waiting, not to cause a scene, not to fight, just to show up, to let them see us, to take away their power. Catherine agreed to come to my house first. We'd coordinate, make sure we were on the same page. "One more thing," she said as we stood to leave. "When we confront them, stay calm. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing us break." I nodded, agreed. We shook hands. Two strangers united by betrayal. Thursday came. I told Lisa I had a late basketball practice. She didn't question it. "I'll be working late too," she said, right on schedule. "Richard needs me for that client thing." "Of course he does," I said. She didn't catch the edge in my voice. At 5 p.m., Catherine showed up at my house. She looked different, stronger, like she'd spent the last few days building armor. We sat in my living room, went over the plan. At 6:30, Catherine's investigator texted her. They'd just left the office, heading to the Ritz. Catherine looked at me. "You ready?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Then my phone rang. "Lisa." I looked at Catherine. She nodded. I answered, put it on speaker. "Hey, babe," Lisa said, voice tired. "I'm so sorry, but Richard needs to stay late again. Big client presentation tomorrow. I'll probably be here until 10. I looked at Catherine. Her jaw was clenched, tears in her eyes. "Again?" I said, keeping my voice neutral. "That's the third time this week." I know. I'll make it up to you this weekend, promise." Catherine pulled out another photo fresh from the investigator. Lisa and Richard getting into his Mercedes 6 minutes ago. "Okay," I said calmly. "Be safe. Love you." The line went dead. Catherine let out a bitter laugh. "She's good," I said. "So is he." We sat there for a moment. Then Catherine stood. "Let's go." We took my car, drove downtown in silence. The Ritz-Carlton lobby glowed like a cathedral, all marble and gold, and people who looked like they belonged. We walked in together, Catherine in a black dress, me in jeans and a button-down. The front desk clerk smiled. "Good evening. How can I help you?" Catherine didn't hesitate. "We're here to see Richard Hartwell, room 412. The clerk's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, I can't give out guest information." "If he's my husband," Catherine said, voice like steel, "and that's his mistress. Now you can either tell us the room number, or I can call the police and report an affair being conducted on your property. Your choice." The clerk went pale, typed something, hesitated. "Room 412, she whispered. "Thank you," Catherine said. We walked to the elevator. The ride up was silent. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. Catherine stood beside me, perfectly still, like she was made of stone. The elevator dinged. 4th floor. We walked down the hall. Thick carpet, soft lighting, the kind of place where secrets are kept. Room 412. Catherine raised her hand, knocked 3 times, firm. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Richard stood there in a hotel robe, hair mussed, wineglass in hand. His face went from annoyed to confused to horrified in about 2 seconds. "Catherine!" "Hi, honey," she said sweetly. "Thought I'd surprise you at work." Behind him, I could see into the room. Lisa sitting on the bed in lingerie I'd never seen, wineglass in her hand. Her eyes met mine, and the glass slipped from her fingers. The sound of shattering glass filled the hallway. Lisa scrambled for the sheets, trying to cover herself. Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Daniel," Lisa started. "Don't," I said quietly.
"Just don't." Catherine pushed past Richard into the room. I followed. The scene was exactly what you'd imagine. Champagne on ice, rose petals on the bed, candles. A romantic evening for two people who weren't married to each other. "How long?" Catherine asked, voice eerily calm. Richard tried to close his robe. "Catherine, this isn't—" "How long?" He swallowed. 6 months. Catherine nodded slowly, like she'd expected it. 6 months. While I was working night shifts to help pay for Emma's tuition, while I was taking care of your mother when she had surgery, while I was planning our 25th anniversary trip? She turned to Lisa. "Did he tell you about our anniversary? It's next month. We were going to Paris." Lisa couldn't meet her eyes. "Did he tell you he has kids? 2 daughters, Emma and Sophie. Did they show you their pictures?" "Catherine, please," Richard started. "Did he tell you about the savings account we've been building for 30 years? The one he's been draining to buy you jewelry?" She pulled out her phone, showed her the bank statements. $47,000. That's how much you cost us. Our retirement, our security, gone. Lisa's face crumpled. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," I said. Everyone turned to me. I looked at Lisa, really looked at her. 6 months, I said quietly. 6 months of working late. 6 months of lies. "Daniel, I can explain." "No," I interrupted. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay." I pulled out my phone, showed her the photos Catherine's investigator had taken. "I know about the Dunhill, the Ivy, the Capitol Grill. I know about the texts, the calls, all of it." Her face went white. "You thought I was too stupid to notice, or too weak to do anything about it." I stepped closer. "You were wrong." Richard tried to take control. "Look, everyone calm down. We're all adults here." "Adults?" Catherine laughed. "Adults don't sneak around like teenagers. Adults don't lie to their spouses for 6 months. She turned to him. "I want a divorce, and I want everything. Catherine, the house, the cars, the retirement accounts, your partnership stake in the firm, everything." Richard's face went red. "You can't." "I can," she said, "because I have evidence. Photos, bank statements, hotel receipts, and I have a very good lawyer who specializes in infidelity cases." She smiled. "Funny thing about North Carolina, it's one of the few states where you can sue for alienation of affection." Richard's face went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me." She turned to Lisa. "That means I can sue you personally for destroying my marriage, for every dollar my husband spent on you, for emotional damages." Lisa looked like she might throw up. "So here's what's going to happen," Catherine continued. "You're going to leave my husband alone. You're going to find a new job, and you're going to pray I don't take you for everything you're worth." She looked at Richard. "And you're going to sign whatever papers my lawyer puts in front of you without a fight. Or," Richard asked, "or I go public. I tell your partners, your clients, everyone." She leaned in. "How do you think the firm will feel about their senior partner having an affair with a junior associate? Think that's good for business?" Richard said nothing. Catherine straightened up. "I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow." She looked at me. "You ready?" I nodded. We walked out together, leaving them sitting in that hotel room, surrounded by the wreckage of their choices. In the elevator, Catherine finally broke. She leaned against the wall, shoulders shaking, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there. 25 years, she whispered. "I gave him 25 years. I know. I worked night shifts so he could build his firm. I raised our kids. I took care of his parents. And this is what I get?" "I'm sorry," I said. She wiped her eyes. "Don't be. You didn't do this. They did." The elevator dinged. "Lobby." We walked out into the bright lights and cold air. "What now?" I asked. Catherine took a deep breath. "Now? Now I take everything he has." She looked at me. "What about you?" I thought about Lisa, about 6 years of marriage, about the future we'd planned. Same, I said. I take everything. I drove Catherine back to her car. Before she got out, she turned to me. Thank you for doing this with me. I don't think I could have faced them alone. Neither could I admitted. She squeezed my hand. We're going to be okay, both of us. Yeah, we will. She got out, walked to her car, drove away. I sat there for a long time, engine running, staring at nothing. Then I drove home. Lisa came back around midnight. I was sitting in the living room, lights off, waiting. She walked in, saw me, and froze. Daniel, don't, I said. Just don't. She stood there, purse clutched to her chest. I've already called a lawyer. You'll be served tomorrow. Can we please just talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. I stood up, walked past her to the bedroom. You can sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow you need to find somewhere else to stay. This is my house too. Not for long. I closed the bedroom door, locked it, and for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The divorce took 6 months. Catherine was right. North Carolina's alienation of affection laws are brutal. She sued Richard for everything, got the house, the cars, half his partnership stake in the firm. She also sued Lisa personally for $100,000 in damages. Lisa tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. She settled, paid Catherine $75,000, lost her job, had to move back with her parents. Richard's reputation was destroyed. Half his clients left.
His partners forced him out. Last I heard, he was working at a small firm in Raleigh, making a fraction of what he used to. As for me, I kept teaching, kept coaching, kept living my quiet life. I didn't get rich from the divorce, didn't get revenge. I just got free. A year later, I ran into Catherine at a coffee shop. She looked different, lighter, like she'd been carrying a weight and finally set it down. "How are you?" I asked. "Good," she said. "Really good, actually." She told me about her new job, her daughters coming home for the holidays, her plans to travel. "What about you?" she asked. "Same," I said. "Teaching, coaching, living?" She smiled. "That sounds nice." "It is." We talked for a while, then she had to go. Before she left, she hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for that night, for standing with me." "Thank you," I said back. She pulled away. "You're going to find someone better, someone who deserves you." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not looking. Not yet." "Smart. Take your time. Heal first." She walked out into the sunlight. I watched her go and realized something. Betrayal doesn't break you. It just shows you who you really are and who they never were. If this story hit home, comment, "I'm free." If you've ever been lied to, if you've ever had someone look you in the eye and tell you they're working late, if you've ever had to choose between your dignity and your denial, this one's for you. Hit subscribe for more stories about the moment everything changes. Because sometimes the worst night of your life is the first night of your freedom. And sometimes the person sitting in your living room is the only ally you need.